Hey guys, what's up? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brendan. I'm a U.S. Army Field Artillery Officer who makes videos to share my successes and failures so others can learn from them, especially people doing something similar to what I've done. Also, I recently got into some great business schools, Northwestern Kellogg, MIT Sloan, and UPenn Wharton. All of this after not even getting an interview on my round 1 application. Last week, I made a video sharing what I learned between my round 1 and round 2 applications and what I think made me go from getting no interviews to getting in everywhere I applied. This week, I want to do something that I think can be even more helpful. I took some time and made what I'm calling ideal calendars for your timeline from graduating college through your time in the military to applying to and hopefully getting into business school. I made 2 of these calendars, one for somebody on a 4-year timeline and one for somebody on a 5-year timeline. This video will be for the 4-year timeline, and then I'm gonna do another video on the 5-year timeline. Personally, I've lived the 4-year timeline. I did ROTC in college, I was a field artillery officer, and I'm right now transitioning out of the military and going to business school. Now, before I start, I just want to say I really advise against joining the military purely to get into business school. I think if you do this, one, you're gonna have a terrible time, but people are gonna see that you're just using the military and to some degree or another, you're using them as a means to an end. You're not gonna have a great experience. You're probably not gonna get picked for the positions that you want, and you're just not gonna have the learnings and the experience that you could have elsewhere. But for somebody who just wants to join the military, I think this timeline will be helpful just so you're conscious of the possibilities out there and the key dates. At the end of the day, worst case scenario, if you follow this timeline, you'll have an option that you just don't use. So without further ado, here's what I think is the ideal timeline for 4 years in the military and going to business school. First, I think it's really ideal to start BULLOC or whatever your branch's initial officer training is around August, because this will give you time between when you graduate college and when you have to show up for training to study for the GMAT or the GRE. Your knowledge on all of these topics that are covered in both of these tests is going to be highest when you graduate college. You know, spoiler alert, your knowledge on trigonometry and sentence structure isn't going to increase in the Army. Both of these tests are good for 5 years, so you can take it and it'll be good for your entire time in the military and when you're ready to start applying to business schools and all that. So for me personally, I graduated college in May. I was slotted to go to BULLOC the beginning of June, and because I needed to get a surgery and I wanted to study for the GMAT, I actually asked to have that pushed. And by doing so, I did lose location I was going to get, and I went into needs of the Army, which is a huge gamble, but it ended up working out for me. My BULLOC got pushed till September, which gave me the perfect amount of time to study for the GMAT and everything, and I ended up still getting a great base here at Fort Bragg. I cannot tell you how happy I am I got the GMAT out of the way before BULLOC and before getting to the real Army and before becoming a platoon leader and before deploying and before all of that. It was a huge weight off my shoulders, and I always knew in the back of my mind that if I wanted to, I had a score that would be competitive at any school. So as you can see, after taking the GMAT or GRE and getting to your first unit and to BULLOC and all of that, I recommend not even thinking about business school for the first 2.5 years. I really think that time is most important for you to focus on your job, learn, grow, especially as a leader, and try new things, all of that stuff. Business school, don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it. It'll be there when you're ready for it. And the more you can learn and grow during this time, and the better you can be there for your soldiers and for your unit and everything, the more naturally you're going to develop stories and develop a narrative that's going to be very attractive to business schools. And not to mention, I mean, you only live so long, so focus on work, focus on leadership, and focus on, you know, living life. For me personally, I didn't think about business school once during this time at all. Really, until I deployed, I didn't think about business school at all. And I really focused on being a platoon leader and everything I just mentioned. When I reflected back on my time in the military and really my life up until that point, when I was beginning the business school application process, I was easily able to come up with stories of, oh yeah, I remember when I did this. Oh, I remember when I did this. And was able to build those stories and create a narrative for, okay, this is who I am and this is why you should accept me. Okay, so now you've spent 2.5 years in the military, you've had a lot of those formative experiences. That May-ish time frame of the year that you plan to apply is when I recommend start looking at business schools. I would really try to narrow it down to about 2 to 6 schools to apply to. Obviously, only applying to one school is probably not a good idea. And if you're applying to any more than 6 schools, I don't think you'll have enough time to put a real effort into your applications. So I try to do some research, figure out what's important to you. Maybe it's a program, maybe it's a geographic location, maybe it's a rank, whatever it is, and narrow it down to 2 to 6 schools. Now take the list of schools that you're interested in and cut it in half. Look into different schools. Some schools really prefer people to apply round 1, like MIT Sloan, and figure out how you want to break up your application. So maybe those schools like MIT Sloan probably apply round 1. Whatever number 1 and 2 schools you're most interested in, I'd probably split them up. I do it this way because you're gonna learn a ton about the business school application process through your round 1 applications. For me personally, I had no idea what I was doing, literally none. But I thought, oh, I could just figure it out. That was dumb. Regardless, it worked out. But I applied to the 2 schools I was most interested in at the time in round 1, which looking back was definitely a mistake because I didn't know what I was doing in those applications and I didn't get an interview at either of those schools. And it's not like you can just reapply round 2. No, if I wanted to apply to those schools again, I would have to wait until next year. Fortunately for me, I still had a couple schools that I really wanted to go to and was able to apply to round 2. But if I had applied to every school that I was legitimately interested in going to in round 1 and I blew it on all those applications, that would have sucked. Okay, so once you have your list of schools you're interested in, it's time to start thinking back on all your experiences and figuring out your narrative, figuring out your story. Take some time to brainstorm all of this before applications open. This is something I didn't really do that well. I did a good job of brainstorming stories and all of that, but I never, in my round 1 applications, I didn't really put them into a narrative. It was just kind of like story here, story here, story here. It wasn't I am X and here's story that supports me saying that I am, you know, a people-driven leader or whatever you want to do. Okay, so now you are at applications. It's time to apply. Finally, I've been waiting years for this. Yeah, let's go. By doing some applications round 1, you're not only kind of getting ahead of the game, but you'll also hear back about interviews and admissions decisions before you even have to drop your paperwork to let the Army or whatever branch of the military know that you intend to get out. So because your GMAT is good for 5 years, you really don't even need to get into business school this year. If you really wanted, you could wait till next year. But assuming you want to get out no matter what, dropping your refred in December, January timeframe is probably ideal for making sure you have enough time to get through the process and everything you need to in time to start an internship. So this is something I'm working through right now in terms of transitioning out of the Army and going through all the steps of the process to get out. I'm going to make a video on kind of what that ideal timeline looks like. Trust me that December, January, if you're on this timeline, is probably the best time to drop your refred. So now that you've applied to business schools round 1 and you've heard back, hopefully you got in. If not, you're doing your round 2 applications. It's time to start working on your CSP or Career Skills Program internship. I'm going to go more into depth on this program in that other video, but try to get an internship. Try to get something in either the industry you want to work in, so for me, kind of startups, or in the field you want to work in. So maybe something financy related if you want to do finance, or strategy related if you want to do strategy, whatever. So hopefully you got an internship and you got it knowing that you're going to be going to business school at the end of summer. So around June, it should be time for you to finish up your internship, go back to whatever base you're coming from, and clear. Once you're done clearing, you should be starting terminal leave, which hopefully if you save up enough time, you'll have a solid month to do something before you even go to business school. So this could be travel, backpacking South America, or working on some kind of project you're really interested in, or doing whatever it is you want. And really, can you think of a better way to end your time in the military than 1, just finishing an internship, which is going to help you out in the future, 2, knowing you're going to business school, hopefully the one you really wanted to go to, and 3, having like a month to do whatever it is you want to do. that sounds awesome. So now I just want to go over the pros and cons of going with this 4-year timeline, starting with the cons. For cons, this one's a big one. If you did ROTC and you got a scholarship, this timeline won't give you any GI Bill. Unfortunately, because you got a scholarship in undergrad and your commitment was for 4 years, your GI Bill time doesn't start until 4 years and 1 day. If you don't have a scholarship though, you will have 100% GI Bill. Also, if you have any kind of ADSO or if you went to a military academy, this timeline won't work for you because your service obligation is more than 4 years. But on the flip side, there's some really great pros. By following this timeline instead of the 5-year timeline, obviously you're gonna be a year younger, which means an extra year to kill in the business world, which means you're younger going to business school, be younger getting into the civilian world, and maybe, probably, this will be another year of working or being in business school or whatever where you don't have a kid. Also, this timeline gives you a lot of flexibility. Like I mentioned before, if you don't get into business school the first time around, you're fine. Your GMAT is still good for another year. So take that time between when you apply the year 1 and year 2, gain more experience, get better, figure out your application more, and apply next year. All right, so that was a lot, but I really think this will be helpful. And it's a lot of advice that I wish I had early on. Between this, the 5-year calendar, which I'm gonna record and put out later, and the 5 things I wish I had known before business school, I think you're gonna be pretty well set up to go from military to MBA. But while I'm still in business school, let me know if there's any other videos related to this topic that you think would be helpful. Also, follow me on Instagram. I'm doing almost weekly Ask Me Anythings on there, and I'm finding that it's a great place for me to connect with other people who are in the military or in ROTC or whatever, and are thinking about doing something similar to what I've done, whether it's with ROTC, active duty, army, or of course business school. Of course, subscribe and leave a like if you want to, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think or if you have any ideas. And really, that's all I've got for this week. So until next time, keep killing.